Undisputed super middleweight champion of the world, presentando a Saúl Canelo Alvarez. Once again, a referee in charge, Thomas Taylor, now to give instructions.
Red corner, wearing black with fuchsia and red trim. When he stepped on the scale, he weighed in at an official 145.5 pounds. Started from the bottom now. He enters the ring, an undefeated three-division pound-for-pound king. With 24 of those victories coming by way of KO. The former undisputed super lightweight. And tonight, defense of his WBO welterweight championship of the world. Bred and reppin' Omaha, Nebraska, Terence Crawford.
Canelo Alvarez has not faced as educated.
Trying to come with a left up and lay on that left side. Punching between punches and a flush.
We'll try to hurt him here.
Another big right hand by Canelo, the right hand leading.
Crawford's boxing journey just took a wild turn. After the shocking and controversial draw between Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach, fans are now buzzing about an even bigger showdown. Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. As anticipation for this mega clash reached a fever pitch, rumors began swirling about when and where the fight might happen. Industry insiders pointed to Mexican Independence Weekend in September 2024, a historic date for boxing, especially for Mexican fighters. Hosting the fight that weekend in Las Vegas, the fight capital of the world, would have guaranteed a massive spectacle. Sold-out arenas, global pay-per-view records, and an electrifying atmosphere packed with passionate fans from both sides. Before we dive deeper, do me a quick favor, like this video and subscribe. 98% of you watch without subscribing, and it helps a ton. Done? Awesome. Now, let's get back into it. Behind the scenes, Saudi Arabian billionaire and chairman of the General Entertainment Authority, Turkic Alalshik, has emerged as one of boxing's most influential power players. He's been financing blockbuster fights and bringing some of the sport's biggest matchups to the Middle East. With his eyes set on delivering the biggest events possible, Alalshik publicly expressed strong interest in making a major financial offer to Canelo Alvarez to entice him into facing Terence Crawford. Saudi Arabia had already hosted massive boxing spectacles, including the heavyweight clash between Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou, and they were now aiming even bigger. The momentum didn't stop there. After hosting the clash between Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou and the anticipated showdown between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, Turkic Alalshik involvement signaled that the Crawford vs. Canelo fight had the financial backing to become one of the highest-grossing paydays in boxing history. However, negotiations quickly hit a major roadblock: Canelo Alvarez's financial demands. While Alalshik was prepared to offer a substantial purse, Canelo reportedly demanded between $150 million and $200 million, an amount far exceeding even the biggest paydays in boxing history. This raised eyebrows throughout the boxing world. For context, Canelo earned significantly less in his past megafights, even against stars like Gennady Golovkin and Floyd Mayweather. Many in the industry saw Canelo's demand as a deliberate tactic to price himself out of the fight, effectively shutting down negotiations before they could gain serious momentum. Adding to the controversy, Canelo's double standards became a hot topic. While he was asking for a record-breaking purse to fight Crawford, reports surfaced that he had agreed to face Edgar Berlanga, an undefeated but relatively unproven contender, for a fraction of the amount, somewhere between $20 million and $30 million. This glaring discrepancy led fans and analysts alike to question whether Canelo was genuinely willing to face elite competition, or if he was strategically avoiding high-risk fights while still cashing in big paydays. As negotiations with Canelo's camp completely stalled, Alalshik made a decisive move. Rather than waste time on prolonged discussions, he publicly announced that he was walking away from the fight and would focus instead on other major matchups scheduled for 2024 and 2025. In an official statement, He expressed his frustration with the situation and confirmed he would now prioritize delivering blockbuster fights for other top talents, including top names like Terence Crawford, Jaron Boots Ennis, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, and others were now in Alalshik's sights. His message to Canelo was crystal clear: accept realistic terms or be left out of the biggest events being orchestrated on the global stage. With Alalshik officially stepping away, the fight that had briefly captured the imagination of the boxing world was off the table, at least for the foreseeable future. However, the drama surrounding Canelo's massive demands and Crawford's pursuit of greatness only fueled more speculation about what would happen next. Would Canelo reconsider and lower his demands? Or would he continue facing less dangerous opponents for big paychecks? Would Crawford move on to a more realistic opponent? Or would he still hold out hope for the super fight that could define his legacy? The questions lingered, but one thing was certain: this saga had only just begun. What was initially hyped as a potential historic showdown between two undisputed champions collapsed before it even got started, and at the center of it all was one major reason: Canelo Alvarez's astronomical financial demands. The Mexican superstar reportedly demanded $150 million to $200 million to face Terence Crawford, a figure that far exceeded what even the most lucrative fights in boxing history had generated. For comparison, Canelo's previous blockbuster fights against Gennady Golovkin, Caleb Plant, and Dmitry Bivol didn't even come close to reaching those amounts. Many in the boxing world viewed this as a calculated move, a way for Canelo to price himself out of a risky fight while maintaining his star power. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabian promoter Turkic Alalshik, who had already shown he was willing to pay handsomely for competitive, high-stakes matchups, made his stance clear. He had successfully negotiated major heavyweight showdowns featuring names like Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk, Anthony Joshua, and Deontay Wilder, proving that money wasn't the issue if the fight was worth it. But even Alalshik wasn't willing to meet such an inflated price tag. When Canelo outright rejected the generous offer, Alalshik made a final, decisive move. He walked away from the fight completely, refusing to waste any more time in negotiations. In a public statement, Turkic Alalshik confirmed he would now shift his focus away from Canelo Alvarez and instead prioritize building other major fights in 2024 and 2025. Among his new targets were rising superstars like Terence Crawford, Jaron Boots Ennis, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, and Virgil Ortiz Jr., fighters who were hungry for major opportunities and willing to accept reasonable terms. Alalshik's decision sent a strong message, not just to Canelo but to the entire boxing world. He would no longer waste time trying to convince fighters to take competitive matchups if they weren't truly interested. Canelo's response, or rather, his lack of response, only added fuel to the growing speculation that he never seriously intended to fight Crawford. Instead of making a counteroffer or trying to renegotiate, Canelo simply moved on, acting as if the fight was never a real possibility. This reinforced the widespread belief that Canelo's initial massive financial demands were a strategic move to avoid the fight while saving face. Canelo Alvarez has long been criticized for carefully selecting his opponents, and his actions surrounding the potential Crawford fight only intensified that perception. Many boxing analysts and fans believe Canelo never truly wanted the fight, not because of money, but because of the risk. Despite Crawford being the smaller man moving up in weight, his elite footwork, pinpoint accuracy, and uncanny ability to adjust mid-fight posed serious problems for Canelo. And this wasn't the first time Canelo was accused of pricing himself out of a dangerous matchup. A similar situation unfolded with David Benavidez, the undefeated two-time WBC super middleweight champion, who had been calling out Canelo for years. When public pressure mounted for Canelo to defend his 168-pound belts against Benavidez, Canelo demanded an outrageous purse of $150 million to $200 million, despite Benavidez being his WBC mandatory challenger and arguably the most deserving contender. Frustrated by the lack of progress, Benavidez eventually moved up to 175 pounds to pursue new challenges, conveniently relieving Canelo of the pressure to face him. Now, with Benavidez out of the picture, it appeared Canelo was using the same playbook against Terence Crawford, demanding an absurdly high payday to avoid a risky, legacy-defining fight without taking the blame. By demanding an astronomical payday, Canelo Alvarez effectively ensured that the fight with Terence Crawford would never happen, dodging yet another elite-level opponent. This strategy allowed Canelo to maintain his undisputed status at 168 pounds without taking the high-risk fights that could jeopardize his reputation and legacy. What made the situation even more suspicious was Canelo's willingness to fight Edgar Berlanga, an undefeated but largely untested contender, for just $20 million to $30 million. While Berlanga is a popular fighter with an exciting style, he is nowhere near Crawford's level in terms of skill, experience, or accomplishments. The drastic difference in Canelo's financial expectations raised serious questions about his intentions. If he was willing to fight a lower-tier opponent for a fraction of what he demanded to face Crawford, was it ever really about money, or was it about avoiding a fight he wasn't confident he could win? Critics argue that Canelo is now firmly in the parade retirement phase of his career, still active, but only taking low-risk fights for maximum financial reward. Since his loss to Dmitry Bicol in 2022, Canelo has avoided a rematch, even after Bicol offered to move down to 168 pounds to make the fight happen. Instead of seeking out the toughest challenges, Canelo has focused on fights that allow him to protect his star power without taking serious risks. This raises a bigger question. Is Canelo Alvarez still interested in proving he's the best, or is he now more focused on protecting his legacy? If recent actions are any indicator, it seems Canelo is more concerned with controlling the narrative than testing himself against the very best. Now that the Crawford fight is officially dead in the water, attention turns to what's next for both fighters. Will Canelo continue cherry-picking safer opponents while avoiding true threats? Will Crawford pivot toward more realistic challenges at 154 or 160 pounds? And most importantly, will the boxing world ever get the dream matchups it truly craves? Only time will tell. But for now, one thing is certain. Canelo's legacy is under more scrutiny than ever before. One thing most fans and analysts agree on. Canelo's hesitation to take the fight suggests he saw Crawford as a legitimate threat. Even Teddy Atlas, one of boxing's most respected and brutally honest voices, weighed in. The veteran trainer and analyst acknowledged that while Crawford's technical skills were beyond question, Canelo would have a decisive edge in power and size. In his breakdown, Atlas pointed out that Crawford's biggest challenge wouldn't be landing punches. It would be absorbing shots from a fighter who had been operating at higher weight classes for years. Atlas also took a "It cuts off here. If you want, I can continue and complete the Teddy Atlas section for you." Teddy Atlas went even deeper into Canelo's reluctance to take the fight. He argued that if Canelo truly believed Terence Crawford had no chance, he would have accepted the fight without hesitation, seeing it as an easy payday. Instead, the fact that Canelo demanded such an astronomical sum suggested he saw Crawford as a serious danger, a threat to his reign at 168 pounds. "You don't ask for $150 million unless you're looking for a way out," Atlas remarked. Other respected voices like Andre Ward echoed similar sentiments. Ward pointed out that fighters like Floyd Mayweather and Dmitry Bicol had already exposed weaknesses in Canelo's style, a flat-footed, counterpunch-heavy approach. And Crawford, Ward believed, had the exact tools to do the same. Ward also dismissed the idea that size alone would dictate the outcome, reminding fans, boxing is a thinking man's sport, not just a physical one. "I've seen Crawford break down guys who thought they were bigger, stronger, and tougher. I wouldn't bet against him no matter the weight difference." In the end, while opinions varied on who would have won, the consensus among boxing experts was clear. Canelo's reluctance to engage in serious negotiations proved he saw Crawford as a real threat, not just another payday. Some analysts believed that Canelo's size and power would eventually wear Crawford down. Others thought Crawford's elite skills would more than compensate for the weight difference. But none of it mattered, because the fight was never truly on the table. Not because Crawford didn't want it, but because of Canelo's astronomical financial demands and strategic avoidance. Now, with the fight officially dead, the focus shifts. Will Canelo continue picking safer fights to preserve his legacy? Will public pressure force him into a real challenge? And will Crawford find another high-profile opponent that cements his legacy without having to chase Canelo? One thing is certain. This fight may never happen, but the debate about what could have been will rage for years to come. The fallout from the failed negotiations has ignited a firestorm across the boxing world. From die-hard fans to veteran analysts, reactions are sharply divided. Some believe that as boxing's biggest star, Canelo Alvarez has the right to demand whatever terms he sees fit. But many, and especially the hardcore fans, believe he deliberately priced himself out of the Crawford fight to avoid the risk of defeat. Critics point to a clear pattern in Canelo's recent matchmaking, opting for less dangerous opponents rather than the most deserving challengers. Critics have also highlighted Canelo's continued avoidance of David Benavidez and his refusal to rematch Dmitry Bykol, two fighters who would have posed serious threats to his undisputed status. Fans on social media have expressed frustration with Canelo's double standard when it comes to his financial demands. If he's willing to fight Edgar Berlingo for a fraction of the price, $20 million to $30 million, why does he need $150 million to face Crawford? As of now, the Canelo Alvarez vs. Terence Crawford fight is officially dead. There will be no historic showdown between the two undisputed champions. No clash of styles between boxing's most explosive counterpuncher and its most technically gifted tactician. What was once imagined as a fight for the ages has become yet another what-if scenario in boxing history. But while the fight may never happen, the controversy surrounding it is far from over. The only question that remains is, will Canelo Alvarez ever take another high-risk fight? Or will he continue down the path of legacy preservation over legacy building? One thing is for sure, boxing fans won't forget this anytime soon. Alright, fight fans. Stay ahead of the game with the latest boxing news, epic moments, and major events. Subscribe to Boxing is Here, turn on notifications, and never miss a beat. Plus, don't forget to check out our other videos for more must-see content.